I would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I got a special guest returning. We are continuing our favorite birth year movies, going decade by decade. Josh Skaar from Talking SMAC, welcome back for part 2 of this fun series, where we're each going to do 10 movies that started with our birth year, and now we're in the second decade of that. First episode was great. I'm really excited for this one because this is the time where we were old enough to like rent movies ourselves or sneak out of the house and see movies ourselves. So this is going to be a fun one. But how are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I am still trying to catch Justin on that most recurring guest on the Cultworthy. I'm hoping to catch up to him sometime soon, but we'll see. But I'm doing really well, and I'm really excited to talk about this. It's a super fun conversation, and last one was just a blast. And now I'm excited because, like you said, this is when we're like starting to appreciate movies, when we're hitting our double digit years and we're kind of recognizing themes and tropes and connecting with things. So this is a good time.
You know, with Justin, host of the Movie Wire and co-host of Back to the Balcony, he hasn't been on the Cultworthy as often because I see him every week and I just kind of want to get away from him sometimes. I think we've got one episode of Animation April coming up, and then the High School Royale, which is usually August, September, back to school time. So you're safe for a while. We might even be able to pump out the third decade of this series before I have him back.
Animation April's coming up. That's right, man. We got to figure something out.
I know. It's crazy. We got to start looking at anime stuff. And then I was saying to you guys in the chat offline, like, I haven't been on Talking SMAC for a while. But then I forgot, actually, Justin and I took the show over for that episode of Predator Badlands. Sure, I just forgot about it because you and Alex weren't on the show. It was just
Back to the Balcony, just where you guys reviewed something new.
Something current, right? And something that was very, let's say, intellectual property based, where our show really isn't that. In fact, we avoid intellectual properties on Back to the Balcony as much as we can. We don't do like the Jurassic Parks. You know, we did do Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2, I think. But for the most part, we try to keep it more mid-budget, mid-level movies, because we all know how Siskel and Ebert felt about the big summer blockbusters and the big intellectual property movies. It makes me wonder, like, what they would think about the stuff that's coming out today. Like, they're probably both rolling over in their graves when they hear, like, there's a fourth Jurassic World movie or a fifth one coming out. Is it 4 or 5 now?
It'd be the 8th one. They just released
of the world.
Like overall, like if you could take Jurassic Park and Jurassic World together, the one that released last year with Scarlett Johansson is technically number 7 in the franchise, number 4 of the Jurassic World franchise.
That's crazy to me, man. Whatever.
Yeah, the MCU would have broke their brains. They would have been like, I kind of like these, but dear God, what are we doing here?
Well, and I also think that now that we are in the world of Rotten Tomatoes and aggregators and anyone can be a critic on TikTok, there might not be a place for them in the contemporary times. I talk about that all the time on Back to the Balcony, where boomers don't go to the movies anymore, right? They just don't. And they mostly got their critiques and their suggestions from Siskel and Ebert or other people like Leonard Maltin and Gene Shalit. We don't have anyone like that right now. People just figure out which talking head on TikTok, which are usually payola, right? They're usually sponsored to say something good about the movie. So who do you even trust anymore? And then us nerds, you know, we've got our own particular tastes, but we don't have the audience because, I don't know, AMC Theater is not sponsoring me to tell them how good their popcorn is. So,
well, the popcorn's not where you're going for. You're going there for the chicken nuggets and the pretzel bites. That's what you're going for with AMC. I'm joking. I hate the smell of chicken tenders in a movie theater. Like, it makes me sick.
We have the Larry H. Miller theaters out here. That's like our big car dealership corporation conglomerate, the local one. He's got a string of theaters out here. They have a potato bar that you can
That's
put like cheese and
interesting.
chili and broccoli. It's interesting until you
Is it
smell like
steamed? Is it
broccoli,
steamed
cheese, and
broccoli or like
potatoes.
cooked broccoli?
It's like cooked broccoli. It's
Oh
like hot
yeah. Oh
bar.
no.
Yeah. So to get a whiff of that when you're watching a movie, delicious. So anyway, okay, well, let's go ahead and get into this because we've got 20 movies to talk about. We don't want to keep everyone here all night. So for people who did not listen to the first episode, what Josh and I have done is we've gone year by year, starting with the year of our birth, of what our favorite movie of each year after that birth year was, decade by decade, and a reason why we like it, our special memories of it, and then we can have a quick little discussion about each of them. A lot of great ones in the 80s, but a lot of them were like blockbustery movies that were either, let's say, the new release on the shelf of the video store or big on cable or our parents took us to see. I feel like a lot of them were very obvious for that reason. The 90s might be a little bit different because even though we did have a lot of big blockbuster movies, like you said, we were able to not just watch what our parents got us. We had a little bit more liberty and freedom of choosing what we wanted to watch and how that affected us emotionally and as cinema appreciators. So I'm really excited to hear what's on your list. Since you're my distinguished guest, you get to go first. What year are we starting with you? Because you were born in 85, right?
I was born in 85, so we are starting in 1995. And I mean, we can basically say we've got 19 movies to discuss because my take for 1995, my favorite movie of that year is a Goofy movie. We have talked ad nauseum about a Goofy movie. There's an entire cult-worthy episode about it. And there's also the Talking Smack bonus episode from last year where you, me, Justin, and Alex talked about the Goofy movie documentary that was released on Disney Plus. I love this movie. It's a movie that really connected with me about like my situation with my dad growing up. And I was listening to it actually just a couple of weeks ago, the soundtrack, and I still love Nobody Else But You. That's such a great song. And the ending is just so good. That's one of those moments where the writer, like they're nobody else, but why? Oh, you, like that ending with you as the double on, like, not, would it be a double entendre technically or double meaning?
Yeah.
With the you. And like, it's just such a good line because you're closing it out, spelling it as well as saying it. It's great. I love it. And like that song doesn't get enough love.
And one of the things that we talked about specifically in our episode is that we don't get a lot of father and son stories in the Disney pantheon. We get a lot of princess movies or animal movies or
stepdad
let's
movies.
say revisionist history movies through the animation or revisionist takes on classic literature. So the fact that they did have a father and son movie, and the thing that I did not realize until we watched that documentary is how big that movie actually plays in the African American culture, or the generation of latchkey kids whose both parents worked and maybe didn't have a great relationship with their dad, and the movie was like a way to kind of help them understand it better. Yeah, I mean, it opened up that movie in a whole new level for me than just the one that my life experience projected.
So Antonio, you were born in, what was it,
81.
81. So you'd be starting in 91.
I'm starting in 91, and I'm getting a little artsy-fartsy here. I did not discover this movie until, I'm going to say, like my 13th or 14th year on this planet. But once I did, it is what really kind of opened me up to the idea of foreign cinema. So my choice for 1991 is Jean-Pierre Jeunet and Marc Caro's film Delicatessen. It is an apocalyptic, or I should say post-apocalyptic, visually stunning comedy, but dark comedy, about a neighborhood in France after the apocalypse where everyone is like the tenant of this tenement building. And on the ground floor is a delicatessen, and the landlord is also the butcher of the delicatessen. And pretty much how he makes his money, or let's say whatever barter system they have, is by selling his tenants meat from his deli. However, in a world where meat is no longer fully available, where does it come from? Well, there's always a revolving open position of a, let's say, groundskeeper of this property. And Dominique Pignon, great French actor, shows up, and he's a former circus clown who used to work with a little chimpanzee. And it's the essentially adventures of him going through this post-apocalyptic world being essentially chased down by the tenants of this building because he is the fresh meat. I saw this on the independent film channel on cable or satellite when I was about 14 years old. And I was blown away because my idea of foreign films at that time were like old Swedish, French, black and white movies in a different language or samurai films. I didn't think for a second at that age that another country could be as funny or visually stunning or kinetic camera work like I was with the Sam Raimi movies as these guys were. And then Jean-Pierre Jeunet just became a favorite filmmaker of mine. City of Lost Children, Amelie, my personal favorite, 1997's Alien Resurrection, right? So although I did not see this movie in 91 when it came out, when I was looking through that list of which 1991 film have I seen the most and share with as many people as possible, it's Delicatessen, man. Were you familiar with this one?
Oh, I have no idea about this movie. And even you said you saw this when you were like 13 or 14. Like you were so much classier than I ever was at that age. I was still just trying to go back and watch like the Jean-Claude Van Damme movies of the 80s and whatever like martial arts or hard action movie I could watch. Yeah, I was not in the same boat as you were at that time point.
I would say the style of Jean-Pierre Jeunet could be closest compared to that of Peter Jackson, but maybe a little bit more artistic. He really plays with color palettes, right? So you can take the camera work, wide angle lenses, extreme close-ups of a Peter Jackson movie, as well as like the physical comedy of it, but make it a little bit darker and like that weird kind of European discomfort. I'd say if you dig Peter Jackson movies pre-Lord of the Rings, then you'll definitely dig Junet's style. I'd also say that Guillermo del Toro is another one really close in that gambit of like creature work, effect work, and the set design, art design, where the set is actually a character itself, right? I feel like those three filmmakers are really kind of hand in hand when it comes to that style of filmmaking. But if you like that style, go back and check his work, especially City of Lost Children and Delicatessen. Like those ones are just so nightmarish and dreamlike before they kind of get a little fanciful in Amelie and Alien Resurrection. But yeah, 1991's Delicatessen is my first one for the list.
I'll have to add that to my watch list. So moving on to 1996 for me, this is not maybe like the best movie of 1996 by a long shot, but this is probably, even to this day, the best theatrical experience I've ever had at a movie theater, and that is Independence Day. I remember going to see this movie in theaters with my dad, and the theater was just raucous and here for the absurdity of the film. And I remember so vividly the crowd applauding and cheering when Randy Quaid goes, "I'm back," and crashes into the mothership, or the one that's on Earth anyway. And just, It was just such a weird and fun experience, because the only other time I've ever seen people like get up and clap and hoot and holler and have a great time like this at a show was a live show. I'd been to like dinner and a show sort of stuff where we saw like The Music Man and other stage shows while you had your meal, and people get up and clap and do all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. There's a performance happening. You applaud the actors and the performers, but I've never seen it done to a screen where the people can't like reciprocate in some fashion with your applause.
Right.
And so it was just really interesting, but it was infectious. And you're just like, yeah, we won. Like it was almost like a sports atmosphere, but it was just such a cool moment for me, because it doesn't happen in my area. And like my dad and I are much more reserved moviegoers. So having everyone around us just get so excited. It was just a really unique moment for me.
You're 100% right on like the audience reaction and participation. That movie, the only other movie I'd seen in my entire life where people got up and cheered was when I saw Aliens when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and the "get away from her, you bitch" scene definitely caused an audience to stand up and cheer and clap. And I hadn't seen that until Independence Day. Also, Independence Day kind of like helped kick off the disaster movie craze of the 1990s. Even though it was like an alien invasion movie, the first half of the movie is a disaster film where we see monuments get blown up. People are just decimated. The fear of like, oh wow, something like this could happen I mean, it taps into that preternatural fear of, let's say, nuclear destruction, but instead of us destroying ourselves, it's aliens invading us, but it still feeds that natural fear. And I really believe that very few movies since that one have been able to tap into that A, fear, but also B, excitement of retribution on a global scale. That, and I feel like Roland Emmerich has tried to like repeat that formula, and he's just never nailed it as well as they did with that one.
Oh yeah, and another thing that this movie does so well is it pulls a really good Jurassic Park where it blends the practical effects with the visual CGI effects that are still relatively new in '96. So when you see them explode the Empire State Building and the White House, they're exploding scale models, and it just looks amazing because it's done on camera. It's an in-camera effect. It's not created in a computer, and the explosion just kind of looks uncanny. It's seamless in its meshing between the visual effects and the miniature work with the spacecrafts and the it's Top Gun with aliens like moving through the Grand Canyon with the Air Force and Will Smith and the first the first alien fighter we see. There's so many like high octane, just gonna edge of your seat moments that it's a really rare action movie that it's absurd to the maximum degree, but it's fun in its absurdity, and the effects and the performances just rope you into the point where you're just like, yeah, I'm in this world. Let's go. Let's win. And you got Bill Pullman as second, third greatest on-screen president ever.
Dude, 90s presidents, like what happened? Like 90s movie presidents are just I'm so envious of that times. Like, why couldn't we have Bill Pullman? Why couldn't we have Michael Douglas? Why couldn't we have Martin Sheen? Like, why couldn't we have these 90s presidents be our president now? But whatever.
Even Harrison Ford.
Don't want to get too deep into that. Even Harrison Ford. Yeah. Oh my God. But last thing I want to say about Independence Day is like when I was talking about the disaster movie trope, what I love about that movie the most is the fact that it returned to a style of filmmaking that we hadn't seen in a long time. And that is where you can tell multiple storylines of characters all throughout the world, right? Or the country, I should say. You're so invested in the stakes of different groups of people that are all affected by this, just the way you would in the old earthquake movies or the airport movies, where I'm now caring about Randy Quaid's family. Now I'm caring about the first lady. Now I'm caring about Jeff Goldblum and his dad. Like, people spread out because of a disaster. That's a thing that would happen. And we hadn't seen that trope done in so long, and they did it so well. And it just was that instant connection of like 70s disaster movies, which I love. So yeah, I love the fact that they did that. And other movies continue to do it too, but I think they're the ones that brought it back.
All right, let's travel back to 1992 for you, Antonio. What was your favorite movie of 1992?
1992 might be in the running, at least in the top 3 of movies I've watched the most times, as well as movie that I can just put on anytime and do when nothing else is catching my eye. That's My Cousin Vinny. Joe Pesci, Marissa Tomei, and Fred Gwynn. I think it might be the most rewatchable comedy of the 90s, at least for my taste and the people that are in my circle. It's one of the first like R-rated comedies that I actually got, because it wasn't crude sexually, that was making sexual jokes I didn't quite understand. It's a very accessible and palatable comedy, and even though it is like a vulgar Joe Pesci swearing a lot comedy, I feel it's almost like The Princess Bride. I know a lot of people that don't watch R-rated movies, but they will watch My Cousin Vinny because for some reason, it just seems innocent. It seems like it's a movie that's very accessible to all people. And I live in Mormon country, and I know lots of Mormon families that don't watch R-rated movies, but they'll quote My Cousin Vinny. I'm like, how do you know that? Okay, maybe the TV version, but yeah, very accessible. And it's a movie that doesn't seem to age. Like, I know teenagers now that love My Cousin Vinny because they grew up with it with their parents. It's quotable, it's hilarious, it's my personal favorite Joe Pesci performance, and he has so many good ones. But it also is a movie that introduced me to Marissa Tomei at a young age, and that undying love has never ceased. It only grows ever since Mona Lisa, her character in My Cousin Vinny, hit the screen in her wonderful bodysuits, right?
So My Cousin Vinny is one that has been on my watch list since I was, this came out in 92, so I was 7. My parents would not let me watch it because they decided in 1992 Joe Pesci was not the fun villain from the Home Alone movies. He was a foul mouth, good for nothing. And so I was not allowed to watch My Cousin Vinny. Although I remember my dad had the cassette. He had the VHS.
He just kept it to himself.
Yeah, he would just watch it. But like, God forbid I sit down and try to watch it. My mom would freak out. Even though, again, my dad takes me to all these R-rated movies, RoboCop,
Right.
True Lies, all these other things. Jamie Lee Curtis is doing a striptease in True Lies. That's fine. But he can't watch Joe Pesci swear on screen.
I feel like you are severely missing out being an 80s baby and having not seen My Cousin Vinny, but I think it's going to be a real treat for you when you finally do, and you'll know that I was right.
It's a movie that I know is regarded as a classic. It's just, I forget about it. There's so many other things going on, and then new things come up, and I'm making excuses, but I've got 30 years of excuses that I really shouldn't, especially in the early days of Netflix when you could order discs. Like, it's just a movie that I just completely forgot about and I didn't think about because my parents told me I couldn't watch it. So if my parents wouldn't let me watch it, it must not have been that good, I guess. Or maybe it just had boobies and my mom didn't want me watching boobies, and that was the only thing notable about it. And
well, there's no boobies in My Cousin Vinny. Like the most nudity you see is Joe Pesci in his underwear.
Oh man, I guess I know what I'm watching after we're done here.
I mean, so that's what this episode can definitely be. This is a blind spot for you, where it's like, okay, I can go check off these movies that were in my watch list that I have not done yet because Antonio said so.
Sorry, I can't watch the kids tonight. Antonio said I needed to watch My Cousin Vinny.
All right, what's next for you?
Next up, this is one you probably would really enjoy, or we might have a little longer discussion about. It is Gattaca in 1997.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I didn't see this movie until I was in high school. I think I was in my sophomore year, and we were talking about DNA, and my science teacher used it as an excuse to play Gattaca for us. And I just completely fell in love with the movie. The aesthetic, the performances, the setting. It just was this wonderfully interesting world. It's not really a wonderful world, but it's a beautiful story and tragic. It hits everything you want out of a film. You have someone going against the grain. You have an underdog story. You've got a love story. You've got a tragic backstory with Jude Law's character. It just ticks every box and something you want from a movie that's going to stick with you.
I love this movie. It's really interesting too, because back when this came out, I really thought that director Andrew Niccol was going to be essentially what we would consider Christopher Nolan now. Like, he had a string of movies that I thought were just going to get better and better, and for some reason they didn't, but he was such a visual director, but also he was a writer of all of his own movies too, and the ideas, the premises of his films, I felt were so ahead of their time. Like, no one was really talking about designer babies in the 90s until Gattaca came out. And, I feel like each decade we get closer and closer to something like that, as well as, the way that forensics work on a DNA microscopic level. That's another thing too. And then when he did Simone a few years later with Al Pacino, again, we're talking about a virtual performer, essentially an AI actress that people think are real. Well, we're literally in the middle of that right now. Like, I think in the next 3 years, we are going to have Simone be an actual thing. But then all of a sudden, like, his films just kind of took a different path. He did a Stephenie Meyer adaptation, I think. I just was really disappointed with the direction he went, because back in the 90s, we all thought that Andrew Niccol was going to have the kind of impact in the industry that Christopher Nolan does, and that didn't happen. That doesn't change the fact that Gattaca is probably one of the best sci-fi films of the 90s, if not ever. Yeah,
it's definitely in the conversation of like a top 10, top 20 sci-fi film. It's a fabulous noir style story as well, because
it's almost a detective movie in there too.
Yeah, it's like it's in reverse, because we're rooting for the guy that's breaking the law, and
like the fugitive essentially.
Yeah, and the lengths he has to go to ensure that people believe he is who he says he is. And I still love that line when Ethan Hawke, through the flashbacks, he and Jude Law are sitting next to each other, and the guy who's setting them up for this arrangement is like, it's like looking in a mirror. And Ethan Hawke's like, are you kidding me? I look nothing like him. And they like put the photos next to each other, and he goes, the guy who's setting them up goes, when was the last time anyone looked at a picture?
Right.
And it's more or less the same thing. It's becoming more true now. Like, we don't have pictures. We have online profiles that people are just curating and being like, okay, yeah, you fit what we need here.
And filters. So even if we do have a picture online, there's a chance that that's not even what we look like.
Yeah, filters, AI generated, AI touched up, whatever. So like it's not that far off from the dystopia we're entering now, but it is just the way it turns around and is such a hopeful story, and also heartbreaking in a sense, because he's probably not making his way back after he starts his mission. And it's what he wants. And it's another movie set up where Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman meet on set and have a very long-term relationship.
And make a Maya Hawk. The designer baby, right? Okay. No, I love Gattaca. Great choice. Okay, so on to my next one. That's just 1993. This might be another blind spot for you.
It sure is.
It's a Bronx Tale, directed by De Niro. It was his first movie as a director, written and starring Chaz Palminteri. It was a one-man show that he had done for years as a guy who had grown up in Brooklyn, or the Bronx, I should say. And essentially, this is kind of like his life story that he did as a one-man show, and then was kind of commissioned by Hollywood to make a feature script fleshed out. And De Niro is an amazing director in the sense that he knows how to emulate the filmmakers that he's worked with. And so it's a total Scorsese vibe, and that's intentional, because he's like, okay, I've been in all these Scorsese movies. I'm making a mob movie in the Bronx. I know how to do this. Casting like real life gangsters as gangsters in this movie, and then just having a really, really great naturalistic cast. And what I love about this movie, besides the fact that it is a father-son trope, which is I'm always a sucker for, like you are, like Goofy movie. I'd say Royal Tenenbaums does that thing too, where I'm like, the father-son moment gets me. This one is where De Niro, who plays the father in the movie, is a bus driver who's always working. And so his young son is like raised to respect his father, but also they live right next door to a bar run by the mob. So he sees all the cool lifestyles that the mobsters are living and is kind of tempted into that world. And it's a lifelong tug of war between like, do I want to be the stand-up blue-collar working man that can go home and raise his head high that he didn't do any crimes? Or do I want to be seduced by the dark side and follow Chaz Palminteri's character, who's the mob boss, where he teaches him it's better to be feared than loved. So that's the character dynamic that I love. But at the same time, it really focuses on, let's say, the civil rights movement and the racial disharmony between African Americans and Italians, very much in the same way that Spike Lee does in Do the Right Thing. But this one's based in the 60s. So it feels like a Scorsese movie. It feels like a mob movie. But at the end of the day, it's a father and son movie. And it's just so ridiculously well done and right up my alley that it's the movie from 1993 that I feel like, I watched the most, but I watched the most with my dad. And that's what really makes it important to me.
Yeah, those father-son moments always affect how we come back to these movies. So like, I think that's awesome. Bronx Tale is definitely a blind spot for me. I'm not even sure if I know I've heard of it, but I didn't know it was as recent as 1993. I thought that was more of like a 70s or 80s film.
And it kind of feels like it because, like I said, it is essentially a Scorsese-ish movie. I trust De Niro that directed it, everyone said, but it's just like so many people said that Spielberg actually directed Poltergeist instead of Tobe Hooper. It kind of feels like this. Like Scorsese was around during the production of this. Like he kind of like helped him out, but I don't think he actually, ghost directed the film, but it does feel like a Scorsese movie. And so I think that's why a lot of people forget how recent it actually is, because it feels like something he would have made in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah, I'm just going to have to start making a list of like Antonio's Rex and go with just try to work my way through it. So moving into 1998 for me, I have to do an honorable mention to Saving Private Ryan. When I had initially sent you my list, just when we were talking about it this sort of stuff away from the mics. I had listed Saving Private Ryan as my favorite movie of 98, which it very well may still actually be. But after our conversation with the last episode, where we went, for me, from 85 to 94, we brought up The Mask of Zorro, and I went back and I watched it after we had the recording. And I was just like, God damn, is this a good movie?
One of the most underrated films of the 90s. Yeah.
It's just one of the last really great action adventure films.
I mean, so it was Martin Campbell directed that one, right?
Yes. GoldenEye's own.
So coming right after GoldenEye, like Martin Campbell knows how to direct a movie. He knows how to direct an action movie. Another one of his films that's highly underrated, that's a great action movie, is No Escape. No Escape with Ray Liotta, which is about a prison island in the future. Martin Campbell directed the shit out of that. And then I even like the one where it's got Chris O'Donnell as a rock climber. I forget what Vertical.
Oh, okay. Vertical Limit? Vertical Limit.
Is it called Vertical Limit?
Yeah.
Yes. I was thinking Terminal Velocity for a second with Charlie Sheen. That's a skydiving movie.
No, Vertical Limit. I really enjoy that one. Like, it's campy, but it's fun.
Underrated action movie too. Martin Campbell knows how to direct action. Antonio Banderas and Anthony Hopkins together is pure magic. We get Catherine Zeta-Jones for like the real first time, I think, where everyone recognized her. I knew her from The Phantom, of course. But what a great movie. It really harkened back to like the old swashbuckling movies of the 40s and 50s, but with 90s action sensibilities and a big, some might say overproduced action scene at the end in the quarry, but I still dug every second of it. Yeah, one of the most underrated action movies of the 90s. I'm so glad you put that on your list. Saving Private Ryan's a gimme, right?
Yeah, it's an obvious answer, but like Mask of Zorro, I think is kind of a lost gem over the last 30 years. It's a 4-quadrant movie. Everyone can watch it, have fun. You have you have a big bombastic action piece at the end of it, but like you're invested in it at that point. It's an origin story. It's a redemption story. It's a love story. Everyone has something that they can watch in this movie and love it. And like, you've got a little bit of Count of Monte Cristo in there. Plus you have some classic Zorro stuff, and you've got Antonio Banderas just chewing up the scenery in the best way possible and owning everything that he does in that movie. He has that unearned confidence at the beginning when he's just like, I was a kid once and Zorro gave me a medallion and now I'm the greatest swordsman ever, but I'm a drunk too. And you have Antonio Banderas just being that cool, calm demeanor and just like, I have my mission. You're going to be my tool to help me accomplish it. I've laid out my plan. I'm ready to go. You don't know what's coming. And in some fashion, I'm like kind of the bad guy in this moment, but like at the end of the day, he's redeemed and he gets his moment. It's just a fantastic movie.
It's a little Batman Beyond if you think about it. You know, if it was an elderly Bruce Wayne passing the cowl onto the next one. But I mean, everyone, if they don't know,
in a sense, it like you could take these beats and just make a Batman Beyond movie.
You totally could.
Yeah,
you totally could. I mean, Batman is essentially Zorro. People have been saying that for years. It's a billionaire playboy, but in the old Spanish West instead of Gotham City. But I digress.
1994. I know this one.
Okay, I'm glad you know this one. 1994 for me. Again, 1994, big year. Lots of stuff in 94. But the one that I feel like I really watch the most and enjoy the most, it's my favorite Tim Burton movie, and that's Ed Wood. I think Johnny Depp is probably at his best here because even though I feel like a lot of his performances are facsimiles of others, you know, turn the quirk up 2 degrees, turn it down 2 degrees, Ed Wood feels so lived in for me. And the fact that it's in black and white, the fact that it's Tim Burton being as low-key Tim Burton as possible, where he doesn't have the wide angle lenses and all the great set design by Bo Welch. Like he really does try and tell a real story here. The performances are great. Martin Landau as Bela Lugosi, Sarah Jessica Parker, Bill Murray. Like the cast is fantastic too. But also it's the first film of his that really tells you how much he loves not only movies, but movie making and the blood, sweat, and tears that go into it. And the unsung heroes of, let's say, bad filmmakers, that they didn't go out trying to make bad movies. They were just out there living their dreams and like really doing anything to produce their passion. And I feel like Tommy Wiseau is like the modern day Ed Wood, where people look at The Room fondly, and the movie they made, Disaster Artist, which is not a bad movie, but it's kind of like a love letter to creative filmmaking from people who maybe aren't truly talented, but you don't care when the passion's there. And that's what Ed Wood is about. I love it so much. I think it's Tim Burton's best movie, and it's one of my favorite movies about making movies.
I remember seeing this sleeping over at a friend's house, and I think his sister, we went to the video store to rent some movies. I think we rented Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and his sister went, "We need to watch Ed Wood." And we're like, "Whatever, you're a cool older sister that smokes and in high school, so we'll listen to you."
We'll listen to you, man.
and we watched it, and it was just super enjoyable. It was approachable, it was understandable. Martin Landau as Bela Lugosi is just super heartfelt. It's like you said, it's Tim Burton in his most restrained. Like, he's not doing too much of his aesthetic.
Right.
It's more him trying to get this story across.
He's being a filmmaker,
and
he's being just a legit filmmaker and not like a visual artist.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to put it. And one of my most unquoted, like one of the most common quotes that I just keep to myself is the no water. I am
no liquids.
Deathly allergic to water.
That character, that's Juliet Landau. It's Martin Landau's daughter. She is a great artist. She's great on Instagram. I would love to have her on the show sometime. But she
played Drusilla in Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
100%. Yeah, she's great, and she has not let go of that quirky kind of dark old Hollywood vibe. I love her stuff that she puts on Instagram. But yeah, great scene. No water, no liquids. I'm highly allergic. Good. I'm glad you've seen that one and that you appreciate it, because I don't know what I would do if you hadn't.
All right, let's move in. We're closing out the 20th century for me. The year is 1999. I'm giving this one the host's choice because I can't pick between these three. This is like asking me to pick my favorite child.
Dude, 99's the hardest year. It was the hardest for me, so I'm curious what yours is.
1999, I've got a three-way tie between October Sky, The Matrix, and The Mummy.
Okay, and none of those were on my list, which is amazing because that means that 1999 means so much to everyone else. The Matrix is kind of obvious in the term that it really did change the way Hollywood operated. It really went to like effects heavy. It created bullet time essentially, and everything used bullet time for the next decade. I'm telling you, man, I'm going to have to say The Mummy, because The Mummy for me is like we talked about with Mask of Zorro. That's a throwback to old-fashioned Indiana Jones style entertainment that we were missing. Steven Sommers is great at that stuff. And it also let us have all the CG nonsense of the 99-2000 era. And even though it wasn't great, it worked for that movie. That movie is so self-aware, it's hyper-aware. And that's what makes me love it so much. I hated the sequels. I'm not so sure how I feel about this fourth one coming up. It'll be a good nostalgia bait. But that first Mummy is banger, man. So of the three on your list, that's what I'd give it to.
I don't think you could really go wrong with any of them. The Matrix, like you said, is the obvious choice. October Sky is a little more subdued. I've made the joke on my podcast a few times. It's kind of like Varsity Blues, but based
nerds.
on a true story for math nerds, because it's one of those I don't want your life stories. But like it's a great true story, and I've read the memoir that it's based on, and the movie is actually pretty close to the memoir. Like, there's not a lot of liberties taken,
Right?
So like you can actually walk away from that movie being like, oh, this is more or less how it happened. But yeah, The Mummy is just, it is pure pulp fun. And I remember going to see this movie with my dad. We used to go to his work on the weekends, where he would make some extra money doing some janitorial work over the weekends. And he would bring me along and pay me like $20 for my 2-3 hours worth of work that I would do. And we would go to the movies afterward. That would be my reward on top of the cash he would pay me. And I remember saying, let's go see The Mummy. I thought it was going to be a scary movie. And like in that era, I was pretty trying to figure out like, well, my cousins really like scary movies and I don't really like them. Maybe I can sit through them in the theater. Let's see. And The Mummy looks like it might be a little scary. Let's go see that. And it was just fun. there was not really a scary moment in it other than like maybe it would
The scarab scene kind of
might-
freaks me out.
yeah, but it wasn't like over the top like jump scare, all these other tropes that you have for a horror movie. Like it's kind of gross, but in certain ways. But like I think the biggest jump scare is the first time the mummy comes out of the coffin or the sarcophagus, and you have that moment where Brendan Fraser's character, they're like, oh man, he's really well preserved. He's still juicy.
And I gotta say, like, I fell in love with Rachel Weisz in the Keanu Reeves movie Chain Reaction. And when I saw her in The Mummy, I'm like, oh, it's a chain reaction girl. And I've just, like, again, been in love ever since. And Kevin J. O'Connor, a Stephen Sommers staple, I mean, he steals every movie, and he steals this one for sure. So, yeah, great choice, man. I love The Mummy. And Arnold Vosloo, mostly known for this, but known for us nerds as the man who took over Darkman in the sequels for Liam Neeson and did a great job.
Was not aware of that tidbit, but
well, now you
good
are.
to know.
Okay.
All right. 1995, Antonio. Let's go.
1995. I would be a traitor to my generation if I didn't say that Heat, Michael Mann's Heat, 1995 was my favorite movie of that year. I mean, it's got my favorite actors in it. It's got De Niro. It's got Pacino. It's got Val Kilmer. It's got McKelty Williamson, Ted Levine, Tom Sizemore, Danny Trejo. Like, what a cast. Rest in peace, Bud Cort, who plays the really shitty diner manager who is just a dick. But yeah, this movie, Michael Mann, one of my favorite directors. Everyone has probably heard now that Heat 2 is in production and has an amazing cast. Let's just hope that, since he's 83 years old, he keeps himself healthy and strong so we see this production through, because I'm getting a little bit worried with all of the passings we've had in Hollywood lately. But man, talk about this, the ultimate crime movie and the ultimate juxtaposition of criminal and cop. And both of their lives are terrible because they're both overly dedicated to what they do. De Niro can't allow himself to be attached to anything because he's a master criminal, and Pacino can't allow himself happiness or a normal marriage or being a good stepfather because he is dedicated to putting guys away. And putting them together in this movie, which is it's a stretch of a movie, but not once does it feel bloated down to me. To me, it's like the perfect way to pace a film that long with that many characters, the action scenes, the bank robbery, probably in my opinion, best cinematic bank robbery of all time, as well as inner city shootout. It's just a masterclass in filmmaking and acting. And I tell you what, man, like, to say that Heat might be like my favorite film of the 90s would not be hyperbolic. It's really, really close.
So I never saw Heat. 95 was still one of those transition years for me where I was still going to see Toy Story, Pocahontas, the Disney stuff. But I was like starting to work my way out of it. But that was also around the time where my parents were really cracking down on like no more R-rated stuff unless it's like Arnold Schwarzenegger stuff, because then we know what we're getting.
Or Schindler's List. How historical. You learn something.
But I remember for a while actually avoiding Heat. Like I didn't believe it was actually good,
right?
Because Dane Cook had a whole bit about it.
Uh-huh.
And he just that whole like thing that he did where he's like, the movie Heat, every guy loves the movie Heat with the bank heist, every guy wants to do a bank heist like in the movie Heat. And I was just like, okay, he's really going at this hard. He must be over exaggerating like what this is, like that must be the joke. And so like for the longest time I just did not recognize Heat as like an actually good movie, because it's like Dane Cook made a joke about it, how good could it be,
right?
And then I've heard more and more people talking about it over the years away from the Dane Cook joke. Like I'm the only person that seems to remember that part of his.
I've never heard a Dane Cook joke in my life, but he's not wrong.
Oh, you're fortunate.
He's not wrong. To me, like that's the same as like, if Godfather of the 70s, where like everyone loves The Godfather, or Tombstone, all dads love Tombstone. Heat's probably in that list. Maybe it does carry a little baggage in that area, but I don't care. Sue me.
Yeah, like it's something again that's been on my list, but especially with the Heat 2 Lego sequel nonsense that's coming up, I'm just like, do I want to?
I'm nervous.
Give it a shot at this point.
I'm nervous. I'm so nervous But if this is Michael Mann's swan song, I'm like, just do it. Do whatever you want. Make it a musical. I'll still go see it.
He's just going to remake Ocean's 11 again.
Right.
So for the turn of the century with the year 2000, my favorite movie out of that year is Gladiator. Sword and Sandals epic. The soundtrack by Hans Zimmer is phenomenal, but I want to talk about my guilty pleasure of the year 2000, and that is Keanu Reeves' The Replacements.
Wow, that's a left field choice. Explain.
I did not see this movie in theaters. I did not see this movie from the rental store. I saw this movie on TV for the first time, and I was just like, Keanu Reeves in a football movie? This is going to be terrible. And it's just fun.
Right.
It's not good. It knows what it is. It knows that it's not peak cinema. It's not Remember the Titans or anything like that, which Titans hadn't come out at that point.
Right.
But it's just this weird blend of campy and stupid, but like a fun sports underdog story at the same time. Like at the end of the day, everyone has to go back to their normal lives because the players' strike for the NFL is done. But they all have this like one last moment of glory where they take out a team that crossed the picket lines, and they get to have this like, not a Super Bowl moment, but still just like something to hang their hats on, that, yeah, on this day, a group of regular Joes that couldn't cut it in the NFL came together and beat an official NFL team.
Yep.
And it's just a really fun moment moment in cinema. And it's just like a really weird sports movie that isn't quite a sports movie, but it's focused around football in a sense. So like it is.
Yeah, it's a shaggy dog sports movie, and that's a trope that's been kicked to death, but I love it. That's the Bad News Bears trope, Little Giants, Mighty Ducks, a lot of those are kids' movies, Major League, Necessary Roughness, and North Dallas 40, Longest Yard. Like, I love the shaggy dog sports movies, and that one was a real surprise. And that was a real, like, I'm not even going to say it was a sleeper. That was a cult film in the making that did not get a lot of attention right when it came out. I think it really discovered its audience on video and TV. I found it on video. And yeah, it's great. And Keanu Reeves, people forget how funny
that's his wheelhouse.
That's his wheelhouse.
That is his wheelhouse for his performance.
100%. I agree with you on that one. Right. No, it's great. And that's back at that era. Like, Gene Hackman was making movies. Like, he didn't have to be the star to make the movie work, right? Like, just being that character, you know? But anyway, yeah, that's a great one. When you said Gladiator, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. That tracks. But no, Replacements.
Yeah, it's definitely maybe like a top 10 movie of the year 2000 for me, but it's not my favorite movie of that year, but it's a movie that I think needs to be talked about a little bit more, especially if you like, as you said, the Shaggy Dogs sports story, where the sport is not necessarily the focus of the story, but it plays a role in formulating the plot.
Awesome. Okay, moving on to me. For me, I got 1996, another big year, but I went really quirky on this one. I'm a huge Mystery Science Theater 3000 fan. Seen every episode. At one point, owned them on bootleg and then bought them all. A huge fan of all of the reboots that they've done. But I tell you, man, MST3K the movie, one of the loudest I've ever laughed in a film, and one of the films that has like the best stay through the closing credits segments of any film, where they continue to essentially rag on all the names of the people in the production. I can tell you the most quotable part of MST3K, the movie for me, is in the closing credits when they say it was filmed on Eastman Film. And Servo's like, Eastman, he came from the East to do battle with the amazing Rando, who's one of the guys in production. Like, that movie shouldn't work on paper. Like, it's fun, the fact that it was like this cult thing that people would watch late night on Comedy Central, Sci-Fi Channel, or in the old, I think was it Minneapolis? Maybe Detroit? It was like somewhere in the Midwest when it first happened. But the fact that they made a movie of it, and the movie is actually just as culty as a TV show, and they put production values. They talk about This Island Earth, which was a perfect movie to do it, because This Island Earth kind of has like some real sci-fi cred to it, and they're still going to shit on it. It's not a bad movie like so many of the movies they did on the show, but that's a simpler time now where I feel like that kind of stuff, people do MST3K stuff online now, and it's just a dime a dozen stuff, but the OG can never be replaced. And the fact that they're still out there doing it, whether it's the MST3K crew or the Riff Tracks crew, they still got it. And I've seen the Riff Tracks crew live several times when they come to Salt Lake City. It's just something that sticks with me. And the fact that it did get a feature-length film, which I own 3 versions of, VHS, DVD, and Blu-ray. Like, I'm one of those guys. I'm that nerd who's just like, MST3K.
So I was not aware that they actually made a movie out of Mystery Science Theater. Like, I've been aware of Mystery Science Theater since the 90s. I've watched several episodes, if not several seasons. I did not know that a movie actually was made. And because after so long, like, it's been running off and on for 30 years.
Longer.
It just kind of
since the mid 80s.
Yeah. So 40 years. It fell. I didn't even know that there was a movie to be thrown in there, because everything is just MST3K. Like, it's just everything. So when there's MST3K, the movie, I didn't even log it, because I'm like, oh, they're all kind of movies.
They're all movies, right? Yeah. No, for sure. And like I said, this is just the one they did. Someone gave them money to do a theatrical release and shoot it on 35 millimeter, and it looks great, and it's got great production value. And I mean, I'm amazed you haven't seen this one, because like, you're such a fan of like online things. You know, the fact that the last seasons that they put out a few years ago had Felicia Day as the villain and Patton Oswalt, right? I mean, I feel like that's your zone right there. I figured you'd have seen this, but you hadn't. So again, put that on your watch list, man. MST3K, the movie. I feel like you should watch. I wonder if Justin's seen it. There's no way Justin hasn't seen it. But now I'm curious, because you guys are like the same age. I'm curious to see if he knows this movie.
I'm sure he has. He's kind of like you. He's a little more classy. I
wouldn't call MST3K classy.
It's a little more under the radar.
Yeah, under the radar.
Under the radar equals classy in my mind.
Gotcha. All right, moving on.
So 2001, I got to go Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah, how can you not?
That's a movie for me that I cannot get enough of, and in my opinion, it is the best of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I recently saw a video of a Viggo Mortensen interview where he talks about how Fellowship is also his favorite of the 3, and it's because it is like the most focused story of the 3 of them, because it's pretty much just Frodo and everything happening around him.
Right.
And I think that might be a big reason why I like it, is because it is more focused, but it's also just our introduction to this world. If you've never read the books, the Howard Shore score, Ian McKellen as Gandalf, it's just absolutely beautiful. And another thing with my dad where I didn't even know this movie released in theaters when it came out in December 2001. I never saw a trailer for it. I didn't know anything about it. I was talking with my cousin on AOL Instant Messenger, a very old phrase. And he's just like, oh, I just got back from Fellowship of the Ring. I was like, what's that? He's like, I can't even explain it to you. You just need to go see it. And so I like pulled up it was Carasota's theater at the time. And I pulled up the show times and saw there was a show in the next like 45 minutes. My dad had just gotten home from his second job. And I was like, hey, Dad, you want to go sit through a 3-hour movie? And he's like, yeah, okay. And once I told him it was Fellowship of the Ring, like, he lit up because he had read the books when he was a kid. And so he's like, yeah, let's go. And we sat through it, and I didn't realize that it was like the first in a trilogy, because again, I had never even seen a trailer for this movie somehow. Right. And it's a revelation I have every now and again where I never saw a trailer for Fellowship. And so I think within the last 3 or 4 years, I finally just went to YouTube and went Fellowship of the Ring teaser trailer. And the teaser trailer for this movie is almost like a horror film.
Yeah, because it's Peter Jackson, and that's what he was doing until he started making these movies.
But the tone is just completely different. And I was just blown away that the name carried so much weight, because the only thing that there was any indication that of what these movies were is when at the end of it, you have like the Lord of the Rings, and then you have Christmas 2001 Fellowship, Christmas 2002 Two Towers, Christmas 2003 Return of the King. And like if you didn't see that trailer, you didn't know this was a trilogy. So when the movie ends with them walking off into towards Mount Doom, I was just like, what?
That's it.
Huh? I had to go do my research, and like my dad had to tell me like, oh, this is a trilogy. This is a part of a book series. And I was just like, okay, well, we need to go to Borders now because I need to know what this book series is.
You know, it's funny. I had a reevaluation of these movies not too long ago. I've only ever seen the uncut, whatever, extended editions. I've only seen them once through, and that's fine. I like the theatrical ones. Keep it concise. I'm happy with that. I was always like a guy who said, oh, I like the Two Towers the best. And upon reevaluation, I'm with you. I think this one's the best one. And I'll tell you why. I don't like all that time with just Frodo and Sam. It kind of actually grates me. So the fact that the Fellowship, when they're all together, actually is so perfect. The chemistry, the team work that's between them, not just performance-wise, but the way it's written. That's what I wanted to see. And I think that's why I was not a fan of the other two as much, because I had never read the books. I'd seen the cartoon, but I'd never read the books. I was like, I just want to get back to like everyone get back together. I don't like it when we split everybody up like this. It just doesn't work for me. And what I really cared about was the battle scene, the Helm's Deep scene. That's why I liked it the best. But as a movie, I think the first one is the best. And I'm pissed off that it didn't win the best picture, because the one that did, I feel, is the weakest of the three. But I'm not sure if everyone else feels that
Agreed.
opinion.
Yeah. So like that's the only Lord of the Rings I have in my list. Because again, I think it is diminishing returns going forward from Fellowship to Two Towers to Return of the King. Return of the King, something got lost in translation in the edit there. Like there's too many fan servicey moments.
Right.
And I just remember being at the midnight release for that movie, and at 2:30 a.m. when Legolas goes sliding down the Oliphant's trunk like he's Fred Flintstone, I just busted up.
I died laughing too.
Like that was supposed to be a cool moment. That's his superhero landing. It's all these other. It's supposed to be just this badass moment for Legolas, and I'm like, "You'll have a gay old time."
To me, that was like the corniest moment up until I saw the Brontosaurus stampede and Peter Jackson's King Kong. That topped it for me. But I digress. That's a different conversation. All right,
Antonio. Let's move into. Is it 1997?
It's 1997 for me, and again, that's a big year for movies. You know, there is one movie. So this is the thing. You might be a little bit too young. I doubt it. You're only a few years younger than me. Remember when soundtracks used to be like such a big deal for movies? There would be trailers for the soundtrack on a VHS or at the movie theater. Like soundtracks were so important to a movie's success back when physical media actually meant something. And if a soundtrack was really good, if it really made a movie better, you'd get like 3 volumes of the soundtrack. You'd get like part 1, part 2, part 3. And a movie that did that had two editions of the soundtrack. I was already a ska head. I was already a new wave fan. I was so into the 80s. I felt like I was born in the wrong decade. But I'm also a Quentin Tarantino kid back then. I want to see movies about hitmen. 1997's Grosse Pointe Blank, it's right up there with My Cousin Vinny of favorite comedies of the 90s. And the soundtrack has a lot to do with that. The specials, the English beat, Toots and the Maytals. Like, it is such a great soundtrack, and it's such a great premise. John Cusack is a hitman who goes to his 10-year high school reunion to take someone out, and he ends up falling in love with the girl he left waiting at prom when he decided to go be in the army and become a hitman. Meanwhile, Dan Aykroyd's a hitman who's trying to kill him. It's like a John Hughes vibe of an 80s film mixed with some Tarantino with like these, now 28, 29-year-olds in the movie. And it's just got such a great energy, great performances. Alan Arkin as the shrink in that movie, one of my favorite like side characters of any film. Alan Arkin in everything, but he steals that movie. And I just love the chemistry between John Cusack and Minnie Driver. And the fact that the whole last third of the movie is just a high school reunion of dancing and fighting and then a great shootout at the end. I feel it's a complete package, and we just don't get movies like that anymore. Like Grosse Pointe Blank to me is like peak 90s comedy that's really throwing back to people that loved 80s movies. So Grosse Pointe Blank, 100% my 1997.
So you might have convinced me to go back to it because Grosse Pointe Blank is one of those movies that I saw kind of under duress where my friends were talking about the soundtrack and hyping up the soundtrack in the film, and I had never seen it, and so they're just like, "Oh my god, it's like the most amazing thing ever!" And so we watched it, and I was just like, among other things, I'm not a huge John Cusack fan. I don't get his
vibe,
charm.
Yeah, the charm.
Yeah, I just, the only movie I've seen of his that I really enjoy is One Crazy Summer.
Okay.
And I think that's because of everything else going on around him, and then like the cartoon interludes.
Right.
But Grosse Pointe Blank is one of those movies that I think that the hype that my friends were building up, that like, this is a movie that's gonna change your life. And I was just like, it was okay.
Dude,
it was fun.
You're not wrong.
John,
it has a tendency to get overhyped. I mean, I just kind of hyped it up because I feel about that way, but it does not translate to all audiences, and I totally get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, largely it's John Cusack, because I have this really weird flaw of not being able to differentiate John Cusack and Matthew Broderick a lot of the time.
But dude, you're a Chicago boy, and so is he. Like, I feel like you guys should be like soulmates.
Cusack or Broderick? Because Broderick, he's famous. Well, Broderick's famous for a movie set in Chicago.
Yes, but and Cusack is a Chicago boy, so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so like, I think that's where my confusion comes in, is because I can't tell who the actual Chicago guy is, and like, they're very, very similar acting styles in the sense of like, I'm going to talk to the camera and I'm going to break the fourth wall,
right?
And just really dry charm.
So you don't like High Fidelity then either?
I think that's another one, yeah, that I just really
that gets overhyped
too. And High Fidelity is the one with the record store, right?
Yeah, it's for pretentious music collectors like myself.
yeah. And then
although you could do it with comic books, and then it would almost be exactly your lane. So who knows?
That's Brody's character in the Jay and Silent Bob movies in the View Askew universe.
There you go. Yeah, you're not wrong.
So I've got another tie here, which I think I know which one you would pick, but it's two comic book movies from the year 2002. I've got Road to Perdition and Spider-Man.
Road to Perdition all day, man. And Sam Raimi's my guy, and Spider-Man is great, but I think Spider-Man 2 is superior. So that's why I wouldn't pick Spider-Man. Road to Perdition, 100% one of the most underrated comic book movies ever, but maybe my favorite Tom Hanks movie. Like, no lie.
I can see that. Is it not Christopher Plummer? Salad Dressing Man. Why
Paul
am I
Newman.
blanking on his name? Paul Newman. Thank you. Paul Newman as the mob boss. Tom Hanks. You've got a very young, I believe, Tyler Hoechlin playing his son. Tyler Hoechlin would go on to play Superman in the Superman and Lois show. Just a great cast. You've also got Daniel Craig playing the bastard son of Paul Newman. And it's a beautiful movie. That's another one where I was hanging out at a friend's house, and my friend's older brother's friend Danny came in, and he's just like, "Oh man, we just got back from Road to Perdition. That movie just fucked me up." And he's like, in the best way possible. Like,
right.
It's beautiful. I'm feeling things right now. And I went, okay, well, I'm going to have to keep an eye out for that. 'Cause back in 2002, we had 3 or 4 theaters. We had the Dollar Theater. We had the Archie Theater that was in like the bad part of town. And then we had 2 mainstream theaters. And Road to Perdition was only in the Artsy Theater that was in the bad part of town. So my dad wouldn't go. And I had just gotten my license around that time. Mm-hmm. And so I had to basically like try to figure out if I could make the time to get one of my parents' cars to go to the bad part of town without letting them know. And it just never worked out. So eventually I got it on DVD, and yeah, it's just a fantastic movie and should be considered in a lot of like best comic book movie adaptations, if not just best like mob movies of all time.
I agree. And the fact that it does take place in like Depression era, gangster time, it essentially the time of the Untouchables, Al Capone, Frank Nitti is played by Stanley Tucci in this one. But the fact that like just the darkness and the vibe, Sam Mendes is one of those rare instances where a filmmaker can follow up an Oscar win for American Beauty and everyone's like, what's he going to do next? And doesn't shit the bed. Didn't make the money or have the prestige as American Beauty did, which I have a very different opinion about that movie now than I did back then. But Road to Perdition was exactly the right move for him. Don't try and recreate the success of your feature film that wins you an Oscar. Do something a little bit different, but also let people know what your style is. And that movie is all about style. It's all about production. And I liked what he did after that. I think Jarhead is fine. I'm not so sure about his James Bond movies. Like Skyfall is kind of known as like the best of the Craigs, but then the next one sucked.
Skyfall is like 2/3 of a really great Bond film,
right.
And then just the ending, I think,
ending
tanks
sucks.
it.
No, I agree with you.
Got him 2 more Bond films,
which I think that was a mistake. I think he should have done something different. But that I'm not his boss. Mm-hmm. But if I was to look at all the Sam Mendes movies in a row, Road to Perdition's my favorite by far.
Yeah, and among other things, like it plays into that thing we've talked about, that theme that we have of the fathers and sons storyline, mm-hmm. And it's got a beautiful heart to it as well, because everything Tom Hanks is doing is to protect his son, and prevent his son from falling into the life that he is in.
And vengeance.
It's sort of
too.
like your Bronx Tale.
And vengeance too. There's some Death Wish in there, right? Like he's also he also wants vengeance, but he's playing two sides of the same card, which is a big part of the story and a big part of the finale too. Also, Jude Law, amazing in this movie.
Oh yeah. I forgot he was in that. I watched this not too long ago, like maybe sometime last year, and Jude Law showing up as that assassin, just that silent assassin,
rotten teeth and a balding head. Like, oh, perfect. Let's ugly Jude Law up a little bit. No, I love this pick, dude.
All right, let's travel to what would that be? 98 or 99?
1998. Okay, so 1998. I'm 17. I've had my license for a year, and we are skipping school, man. We have like free period or whatever, and we are driving to the art house theater to see whatever movie is not playing in the multiplex in conservative Utah. And I was already a huge fan of Terry Gilliam from 12 Monkeys and Time Bandits and Baron Munchausen and Fisher King. Could go on and on. But the Terry Gilliam movie that fucked my brain the best is 1998's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas with Johnny Depp and Benicio. Benicio I had seen in Swimming with Sharks and License to Kill. And then I think most notably Usual Suspects, where he just really kind of made a name for himself by being weird. But dude, he went full out in Fear and Loathing by gaining 60 pounds, being this big, crazy Samoan guy. And it's a movie just about chaos. Like it is, in my opinion. Because there's some other movies that try to recreate the feeling of a drug overload. The feel like you are watching a movie and you're impaired by it, but you could be totally sober with the visuals, with the sound effects, everything, the performances. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, it's a love it or hate it movie because it's all about how you feel in an emotional and physical state. It makes you sick. It makes you nauseous. It makes you dizzy. And I've said this on Back to the Balcony many times to Justin Henson, who has different opinions about movies like this. If a movie can have a visceral experience and affect me emotionally and physically, I'm going to be so forgiving if it's not quote unquote a good movie. If a movie can actually permeate my psyche and my skin, then the filmmaker's doing something really special. And Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas to this day is probably the only movie to really do that to me, where I'm like, oh my God, I feel like a drug addict right now. Bravo, Terry Gilliam, for doing that to me.
So I saw this movie, I think when I was probably 13 or 14.
Oh, too young.
My friend who, my friend who I said his sister had recommended Ed Wood to us.
Right.
I think she also was the one that told us to get Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, or maybe she rented it and we just watched it with her. Because again, we're trying to like absorb her cool without getting in trouble.
Right.
And I remember my buddy and I just at 13, just finding this movie absolutely hilarious.
Well, it is funny.
Really realizing, yeah, and like there's great comedic moments, but when you come back to it and realize like it's a dark comedy and it's a showcase of this guy's lifestyle, as an adult, you're kind of like, why was I laughing so hard at some of these things?
Right. Yeah, I mean that's the thing is there's also. I think for a lot of people, it became like a gateway into reading Hunter S. Thompson books because as crazy and drug-addled as the man was, he did have a very, I'm not going to say centric, but a very outside look on American politics and American society and culture that helped you kind of like see the facade of what our society really is. You know, it's billionaires making money, and they keep us under control with legal and illegal substances. Like there's great books written back in the 90s about how like the black market and drug money and sex trafficking and stuff like that, how much of our economy is actually based on that we're not supposed to know about it. And movies like this kind of show that. Like it's obviously very kinetic and quirky and weird, but it also shows like what the underbelly of, let's say, law enforcement and the underbelly of the drug culture really was, and the anti-war culture. Like it almost feels, I call them ant farm movies, where we're forced to look at ourselves from a third party perspective. And this movie kind of does it. It kind of breaks down the gloss of Hollywood and shows you the decay of the country underneath it. So as you get older, you read more, you learn more, you talk to more people, and you accept more ideas. Movies like this make a lot more sense than the weirdo, bizarre movie that you saw as a 13-year-old, because now you get it. Now you get all of the references that they're making to the underbelly of America. And that's Hunter S. Thompson, like in a nutshell, is he just wanted to show you how dirty America was. And this movie does a pretty good job. I mean, Las Vegas really is, you could say, the underbelly of the country, and that's why the movie's set there.
And now it's all family friendly in the Sphere.
Is it really though? Is it really? Or is that just like a toenail painting?
It's a veneer.
It's a veneer.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is my 1998.
All right. We kind of alluded to this earlier, and Johnny Depp is making a lot of appearances in this.
It's his era, man. It's
list.
his decade.
Yeah. So my 2003 pick is maybe one of the last really great adventure films we've had. At least definitely one of the last really fun ones. Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. Mm-hmm. It came out at the right time. Johnny Depp's quirkiness just worked with his Jack Sparrow, and Orlando Bloom is the right kind of dense. Keira Knightley is of age and is not a problematic actress to have as a romantic lead. It's a movie that should not have worked at any level of its production process, being based on a Disney ride, being a swashbuckling pirate adventure filmed in the early 2000s,
right?
To having very heavy CGI interactions as well with characters. There's a lot of stuff that should have gone wrong, but somehow Gore Verbinski and his crew made this come together, and it earned Johnny Depp a Best Actor nomination, which I believe was his first one ever that he had been nominated for at that point.
Right. I knew Gore Verbinski was going to do good stuff after Mouse Hunt. Mouse Hunt is a classic, in my opinion. That might have to show up in the Cultworthy at some time. It's like, do not speak ill of Mouse Hunt. Dude,
dibs.
Pirate movies were toxic. There wasn't a successful pirate movie. In fact, one of the most notable Bonds of all time was just like 6 or 7 years earlier, and that was Cutthroat Island, which essentially ruined Carolco Studios and Rennie Harlan's career for a while, right? So the fact that like no one made a pirate movie until this, and they're like, you're going to put all this money based on a ride at Disneyland? It worked. It worked 100%. Jeffrey Rush. Remember when Jeffrey Rush used to be in everything, and now it's like, where is he? But I digress on that one. Yeah, this movie is a blessing and a curse for me. It's a blessing in the sense that, like, I agree. It was one of the last great action movies. Adventure, I would say, is the better way to put it. But it's also the movie that ruined Johnny Depp for like a lot of people, because now he had to live up to this now. You know, I remember the next movie he did after this was Secret Window, which was like a Stephen King movie, which I liked well enough, but people were like, okay, that's cute. Bring us back the drunk, goofy, quirky Johnny Depp. And that's how we end up with fucking Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and shit. And then it just never really.
Yeah. Well, he had Secret Window, and then he had Finding Neverland, which Finding Neverland was supposed to be like his Oscar movie.
Right.
And the performance didn't resonate with people. Although I think Finding Neverland from a filmmaking perspective and with a musical score is a gorgeous movie.
Yeah, it's fine.
It from a storytelling perspective, it's not great, but I think the visuals of that movie, the score by Yanni P. Kazmarek is just phenomenal. And that sequence of Kate Winslet's character when they reveal Neverland in her backyard, and like the transition to the funeral is just hauntingly beautiful. But you're right. This Pirates of the Caribbean did kind of destroy Johnny Depp's career because he just struck gold with this Keith Richards impression that he came up with. And it just, that part of it sucks because at the time we thought he was going to go on to do some really great things. But I mean, you brought up Jeffrey Rush. He kind of stole the show in that. He's a character that they killed off and then they had to bring back for the sequel in some way because of how good he was.
Yeah, he's just a great villain. I mean, the movie is great. A lot of great people in that movie. And, I keep seeing it on TikTok. The fact that this movie was 2003, and then the ones that followed it. How was CG better back then than it is now? When you watch a lot of the CG effects, especially the second one with Bill Nighy and his Davy Jones tentacle face, like that CG is so much better than what we see in CG today. And we know why. It's because of cost effectiveness, and now AI is going to do that shit for
time
us. Time and budget. But that's the thing is like look at the CG in those movies and the care and the production value. And yeah, they cost a lot of money, but I'm telling you, man, what's the first thing that people bitch about in all the MCU movies the last 6 years is how shitty they look. And they're not wrong.
Oh no, I will never defend the visual effects of modern MCU anything.
Right.
I mean, it was even getting bad by Endgame, but that's because they put all their money into that final fight sequence of like 45-minute fight sequence in Endgame. But it's only gotten worse because they're more interested in meeting deadlines than they are putting out a good product.
Correct.
But that's a different conversation for a different time on my podcast.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, let's go to 1999 for
99, I tell you, man, that's the hardest year for me. And I could have had a lot of, like, you had 3 movies to choose from. I had so many. But I'm going to go with, I'm going to say kind of like the tribute farewell film. The movie of 1999 that I was the most excited to see, because for me, a lot of the movies in 99 were surprise hits. Like, I wasn't expecting Fight Club to be good until it was, or The Matrix, or Something About Mary. Like, these were just all movies from filmmakers like, oh yeah, I like that last movie they did. Let me check this one out, blah, blah, blah. But everyone who wanted to see the last Stanley Kubrick movie, which was Eyes Wide Shut, the fact that he died before it came out, obviously Kubrick fans are going to go see it, but then also taking like the next, 26 years or more to try and dissect it and what it means. And then all of a sudden in the last decade, we've got Epstein files and finding out that there are these elite cabals of sex parties and sex trafficking. And was Stanley Kubrick killed because he made a movie about it? Maybe. So I think that's why I had to say Eyes Wide Shut, not only from a cinematic point of view and a storytelling point of view, but from a culturally relevant point of view, where in 1999, we're like, yeah, I bet there are weirdos in big mansions, elites like the Rothschilds that have all these crazy orgy parties, and then living through the last 10 years, especially the last 2 years of files and grand juries and seeing it on the news and everyone having conspiracy theories about it. We were like, oh shit, he wasn't lying. That really does happen. And now we're getting to see pictures of it in real life with people in politics and power that we recognize. So that's why I had to put it as my 1999 pick, is because A, Kubrick, last movie, but B, the cultural relevance of it today, where now everyone's like, oh shit, Eyes Wide Shut was a real thing.
That's where I'm a little jealous of your what's a nice way of, we'll just call it what it is. That's where I'm a little jealous of your age. You're able to have like a different perspective on things where I didn't, because I'm 5 years younger
at your
than
age.
you.
This would have just been that horny movie out there, right?
Yeah, it's that's for my parents, again, still kind of controlling what I'm watching when I'm 14 years old. This was a movie that, it's just a sex movie. It's a softcore porn that they're putting an R rating on, and so people can go and
see
get their
Nicole Kidman naked, right? That's what all they cared about.
Yeah. So I like the perspective that you have on that is really, because the main thing I know it for is it's Kubrick's last production because he died pre-release.
Right.
And then the next thing that he was supposed to do was AI, artificial intelligence, which was released by Spielberg, which I think is an underappreciated movie. I don't think it's a good movie, but I think it gets a bad rap from people who are like, well, it's not what Kubrick would have done. And like, yeah, no,
Right.
but taking it at face value for what it is a nice movie. And I think it's one of John Williams' last really great scores. But Eyes Wide Shut is a movie that I think you're right. It should have a little bit more of a cultural relevance today than it does. And like, maybe that is somewhat intentional, not to ring the conspiracy bell too hard, but it is a movie that maybe has a little more cultural relevance than we're willing to give it credit for, because too many people just brush it off as, oh, it's the Nicole Kidman boobies movie.
Right. And I mean, the fact that it also holds a record of the longest film shoot ever. It's like 650 days or something, right? It was almost 2 years that these people were in London. It had revolving casts because people would go out there to shoot a movie and they would just end up waiting because he never got to them. So they had to replace them. Like Jennifer Jason Leigh and Harvey Keitel were supposed to be in that movie. They never got to their parts, so they quit and they had to replace them with other people. Like, he really put a lot of time and effort into his last film, almost as if he knew it was going to be his last film. Again, I don't want to get into conspiracy territory there, but it's interesting because a lot of arrows point that direction. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm sure the elites love this movie, because they have something that they can point people towards as a distraction while they're doing like real shit and real devious shit. But yeah, the cultural relevance of it for sure. And I think just a lot of people forget, it's just a genuinely good movie. Like, it's a good movie.
All right, closing out my decade, in the year 2004, I have Disney Pixar's The Incredibles. As close to a perfect superhero movie as you could get. It's a movie that forced Fox to change its Fantastic Four movie that they were soon to be releasing, because it hit so many story beats and moments that they were planning to do for their movie.
Right.
And it's a 4-quadrant movie. Everyone can sit down, enjoy, and watch it. Everyone can sit down and watch and like take something different away from it. They can find a different perspective. And it's also a movie that has a villain. It's the Killmonger of the early 2000s, where the villain kind of has a point. The villain is almost in the right. They're just going about it the wrong way. And if Syndrome just applies his technology to better the world instead of getting revenge on supers, he's rolling in the dough, but he wants to put his money towards revenge because he couldn't be a superhero sidekick as a kid. And it's heartbreaking because everyone wants to be a superhero sidekick and eventually grow up to be a superhero. And he got told no right to his face. And what better villain origin story than being told, no, you can't be a hero?
No, you're 100% correct. You know, when I saw this movie, I loved it because I thought that it was a mature Pixar movie, you know, and I loved the fact that there was some maturity, not so much marketable to kids, and they continued that trend for a while, and then they kind of went weird with it. But also at the same time, like, I was a little bit jaded because I'm like, oh, well, it's kind of like X-Men. We got superhero registration, and it's kind of like Watchmen, where people turn against superheroes, blah, blah, blah. But I think that was just the pretentious me of that time. Looking back on it now, I'm like, it genuinely is like a really good movie. And like you said, the whole nuance of the character of Syndrome really makes a lot of sense because, I mean, it is that justification of a villain, the empathetic villain that you, like you said, he could turn around and do good with his intelligence. But Brad Bird is just a genius. Like, I think Brad Bird is a genius. I feel like we haven't seen enough of him. I don't know. Maybe Tomorrowland just kind of like cut the wind in his sails.
Tomorrowland kind of it either broke him or it broke Hollywood towards him.
Yeah. But I mean, his Mission Impossible to this day is my favorite one besides the first one. I really love Iron Giant. Like, the dude is just a genius, and this was such a great movie. I'm torn of like which one of his I like better, Ratatouille or this one. I think they might just be tied.
I mean, for you, I can kind of understand Ratatouille because there's so many like little details in that movie, and it is just a beautiful story. But for me, like,
you're the superhero guy.
It's the rewatchability. Yeah. For me, The Incredibles is like the most rewatchable movie I've ever seen because I could literally just put it on in any mood and be like, yeah, this is what I need right now.
Wow. Yeah, cool. I like it. I love that for you. No, and it's a great movie. I miss those old days of Pixar. I don't think we're ever gonna get them back, unfortunately. So
No, I think this was one of their last productions before Disney like outright bought them and just made them part of the Disney umbrella.
right, and you can feel it in those movies after. Okay, so now to my last one, 2000. Yeah, 2000 is an interesting year. Let's see. I was a year out of high school. I was like in my first apartment by myself, solo, had a job, had a girlfriend. But what I had a lot of was time because I had dropped out of film school and I was just watching tons of movies. And I had a Hollywood Video down the street from me that just had an endless foreign film, martial arts film, Asian cinema section. And I rated that thing. And the film that everyone wanted to get their hands on was almost impossible for the first little while because of censorship. And that was 2000's Battle Royale by Kinji Fukasaku. So, I mean, it's the movie that essentially everyone says Hunger Games ripped off. You know, Quentin Tarantino says that. I have to say that
He just got in some really bad hot water because he got into such a big tizzy about that movie.
and so did Stephen King, you know, because Stephen King said it ripped off his Long Walk as well. There were lots of movies of kill or be killed on TV before that. Running Man. There's a French film called The Prize of Peril, which is very similar to Running Man and Battle Royale. So it wasn't anything super original other than the sense that it was kids fighting each other. That was the big thing. And that's why it was in such hot water in 2000, because just the year before, Columbine happened. So that was my year, 1999. I was a senior, just like the kids that died in Columbine, just like the killers. So anything that related to kids with guns and killing was the biggest taboo for at least 5 years. I think September 11th kind of changed it a little bit because then people focus on other things, but you could not find a copy of Battle Royale in 2000 because no one wanted to carry it. But my Hollywood Video did, and I watched it, and as soon as I could buy the bootleg from Korea, I did, and I still have it on my shelf. I think it's such just an amazing piece of filmmaking, an amazing piece of social commentary where, like, in the future, or let's say near dystopian future, when you've got population crisis, when you've got crisis with food and water, and education is like the most important, like educated people, that anyone in vocational school, anyone that is like not going to be an elite, how do we thin them out? I mean, how do we get people entertained? We put them on an island and force them to kill each other, or else they have self-destructive devices on their necks that blows their heads off, and we televise it. The social commentary on it is dark, and it might have seemed hyperbolic back then, but I'm telling you, man, now in the days of reality TV and as resources start drying up, I would not be surprised if we start seeing stuff like this. I mean, we're already hearing like Hunger Game type things coming out from this administration that are just supposed to be for fun. How long is that going to be just for fun, right? So again, that social, that cultural underbelly that sci-fi predicts every single time, whether it's AI, whether it is fascism, sci-fi doesn't lie. And this is a movie that I think definitely represents that. So Battle Royale was my...
Coming soon to Beast Games Season 3.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Have you seen this one?
I have not. This is another one, just like the Train to Busan
that's a good one too.
I need to get my hands on, but I can't remember. And it's just something that I don't have the freedom of time to do. Like if my family ever just like goes and visits family abroad or out of state for like a month, I could maybe catch up on some of the stuff that I'm behind on that I've been wanting to watch. But this is another one where like I hear it referenced like, oh, this is just Battle Royale, but with this thing. This is Battle Royale with that thing. It's one that I'm like, okay, it's a cultural touchstone. It's a pivot point where Hollywood saw this and went, okay, this is a thing that we can use and just create a template out of. And so like you always want to go back and see those originals because they're important to what comes after. And so this is one that I really have been meaning to watch for a long time. I just have not had the time or recollection to be like, oh yeah, Battle Royale. Let's see if I can't find that somewhere.
I'm telling you right now, man, this is a Josh Skaar movie. If there ever was a Josh Skaar movie, like I feel it fits all of the prerequisite check marks that you have for movies of all the years I've been listening to your podcast and talking to you about things. Like it definitely there's the hackers, there's techno to it. There's ringers in the group. There's a lot of switcheroos. There's friend versus friend. As the numbers thin down, who's going to like protect each other and who's going to turn on each other. Like the stakes are so high and it's so well done. Yet there is something that Asian cinema does that I feel that American culture does not quite get yet. And that's just having like the thinnest layer of satire, sarcasm, and humor to such a dark subject that makes you feel just a little bit better about it. For some reason in Western filmmaking, when we try and do that with dark subjects, it's almost as if we're not taking it seriously. So just as how some American idioms don't translate into Japanese or Korean filmmaking, the same can be said of them over here. Like they have somehow been able to paint a veil over really dark subject matter and dangerous subject matter to almost make it feel like it's okay to watch this because we're not taking it extremely seriously. But if we were to do that here, it's almost as if we're mocking the subject matter. And after Columbine, that's something people definitely didn't want to do. So I get why this movie had so much turmoil in the West when it came out. But now it's looked at as a modern day classic.
Yeah, it's a fine line that we draw given whatever happens in our zeitgeist. Because like very shortly after what it would have been 2006, we had The Departed.
Right.
And like it was adapted almost within like 18 months of the original's release.
Yeah, it was a couple years. Mm-hmm. The Infernal Affairs.
It was a pretty close adaptation. So like if Columbine doesn't happen, there's probably an American version of Battle Royale by 2002.
Yeah, I agree with you, because if you look at the trajectory it was going, especially with like Kevin Williamson movies or like the movie Disturbing Behavior, like they were getting darker with what teenage movies were and could be. And I think Columbine changed everything, where like they had to sanitize after 1999 what kids could do in films until they were far enough removed. I mean, we still don't see a lot of, kids with gun movies, which, I mean, not to spoil a movie, but the new movie that just came out, Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, because we have had school shootings every year since Columbine. It's an American epidemic. School shootings.
At this point, it's every week.
Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die actually is the first movie I've seen in a long time that had the balls to attempt to satirize it a little bit, but not so much the idea of the school shooting. It satirizes the idea of how people are just so immune to it now and just have such tepid response. Like, oh, another school shooting happened, right? Thoughts and prayers. That's where we're at now. Where 99 Columbine was a huge deal. It changed everything for us as teenagers and as people and as a culture. And now 25, 26 years later, it literally gets shrugged off and people can't remember when the last school shooting was. It's ridiculous.
One of the best jokes in media that I've ever seen is in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The school newspaper has a headline that just reads, "Apathy overtakes Sunnydale. No one cares."
Yep, that's what it is. Awesome. All right, man. That was another, 19 movies that we just did. Fantastic, right? And get to know so much more about each other. I've seen all of your movies, so you've got some homework to do on my list. If you're going to start with any of those...
I'll tell my wife to go on vacation.
Right. If you're going to start with anything on my list, though, I say start with Battle Royale for sure, and then you got to watch Heat. If you are a 1985 baby and you haven't seen Heat, those two are the ones that are like, dude, get on that fast.
I will add it to the list. Those are, like I said, those are movies that have been in my mind as things I should watch, but it's just finding the time, especially with three kids, all 10 and under. It's hard to, do I sacrifice sleep so I can be entertained, or do I go to sleep so I can function the next day?
And if Heat 2 comes out and you guys do an episode on it, you're going to want to know the source material, right?
Yeah, I guess that's true. I should watch it for the content. That's the most important thing.
There you go. Awesome. Okay, well, so like I record everything in advance, so this is roughly 30 days out from when it's going to air. What do you got coming up in the next month that people should know about on Talking SMAC?
So we just released our 2026 blockbuster draft with Justin. Justin destroyed me and Alex in the 2025 fantasy draft. This coming week, the week we're recording this, we have another wonderful interview with comic book writer Matt Groom. After that, we'll have a What You Doing. And to close out March, we will be reviewing Project Hail Mary, which is one I'm very excited for. And tentatively, at time of recording, we do have Josh Wilson penciled in to guest for that episode as well.
Cool. Really exciting. That is one of the few movies of 2026 I'm actually really excited to see. I haven't read the book, but I'm such a big fan of The Martian, and I just really, really like Miller and Lord and what they do. So I'm really just excited to see what they do with that one.
I was so excited from the concept of this film and knowing that it's based off an Andy Weir book that I went and I got the book and I read it, and I was blown away by the book. It's a great read, and Andy Weir has a great sense of being able to translate the science, even if it's theoretical science, and the eureka moment. Like, you're reading a bunch of theorems and concepts, and he just makes it so like when they come to the revelation of their solution, you're like, yeah, let's go, let's do this. And he has a way of making that just so engaging.
Right.
And so like I'm very excited to see how they translate it, and I hope it's as good as early reviews have said it is.
Well, I'm excited for that one. So everyone, yes, thank you so much for joining me on this one. We'll do it again. We got one more decade essentially before we start getting towards the end. Like, we'll have a short episode to cap off the rest of the time that we've had on Earth. But everyone, please go like, review, rate, subscribe. Josh Skaar's podcast, Talking SMAC. You can find all of those links in the show notes of this episode or at cultworthy.com in the Cultworthy Partners page. So please go like, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast. Check out my other show, Back to the Balcony, with Justin Henson. It's our Siskel and Ebert retrospective show where we review the reviews of Siskel and Ebert every week. Thank you so much, man. It was great seeing you, and we'll have you back again soon.
As always, thanks for having me. It's a great time.